I have a question for you, Chad. How do you communicate once you've set your budget? How do you communicate that budget to the rest of the legal department? And what is their responsibility in terms of ensuring that they meet that budget? Or is this something that rests solely within your purview?
Yeah, so this question was like, I think back to when I first went in-house and I think about budgeting. It was actually something I was really curious about because in private practice, you don't really have a budget that you're controlling. Maybe you have some professional spend, but whatever it is per year and you use it. So you don't really think about this stuff. And so I was actually really curious about it. And I had never even really thought about, oh, yeah, legal functions a function and it would have its own budget. I never even thought about it until I went into industry. And so when I first started, I really wanted visibility from the GC and the AGC of Indigo about like how they built it because I had never even thought about it before. And so a lot of stuff that Jamie's talking about was the same stuff that I learned, which is you got to get involved all the stakeholder groups so that you can see it, you can understand it, you can plan for it. And so for me, now that I'm the one who's doing that same work, I do take a lot of time and effort to make sure that anyone who's on my team understands the budget, understands how we're creating the buckets we're creating or very specific line items or software tools, because I think it's a really important skill to learn. Like when you move into industry, from almost every peer I've ever spoken to, it's a basically another business function. And you have to be able to understand how all of those functions are running their own P&Ls. And maybe you don't have a revenue stream yet, but you definitely have the other side of the coin and you have to understand how that works. And so for me, I'm a big proponent of making sure that anyone that's on my team understands how the budget got built up, what it connects to, what we're accountable for, what would happen if we had a black swan event we hadn't planned for, or we're underneath the budget and what the trends look like, what the meetings with, if you have a finance team partner that kind of does reconciliations with you, depending on how your company does it, like how that works. I think that's really important. Then in terms of who owns the spend, that probably depends on like your team structure, seniority, specialty. So in mine, if we're a 2-person legal team and I have a junior and I wouldn't expect her at her age and stage and just joining the company to own it. But if we were getting close on like different levers, I would expect her to understand and make sure that we're getting like value for the ask. I actually think that's the most important thing about training people about budgeting. It's not just about setting a number, it's about getting value for that number when you spend it. So that's where I would really put a lot of my time into training someone to think about budgeting, is like also that second piece. Is like, okay, now you've got a number. How do you get value for the number in terms of quality instructions, the timing, et cetera? So I think it's a pretty important thing for someone to train their team on.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely agree. It's definite that transparency is so impactful within a team and builds that trust as well. So thanks for that.